Hi guys, and welcome to Super Kicking It with Kelsi, my channel. I want to show my appreciation for you guys joining me for this live chat. I've been promising to do a Q&A for quite a while, and so now I'm finally delivering on the Q&A. I've got some good questions, but I'm also going to talk generally about wrestling and even Wrestle Kingdom. So, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling. They just had Wrestle Kingdom 14, 2 nights. First time it was 2 nights, and I really thought it was awesome. Again, I talked about this with my friend Warren. It's not as nostalgic to me and important to me as like Wrestle Kingdom 11, which is probably my favorite Wrestle Kingdom, but it was still great. So, thank you to all of you who are joining me right now. Priscilla, DJ Storms, Dave, of course, good guy Dave. I'm so glad you guys are joining me in the chat right now. Thanks so much. And thank you all who are watching right now. Very much appreciated. Graham signing in. Thank you, Graham. Hi. And yeah, I do want to say thank you. You know, I put out a message on Twitter today. If you guys don't follow me on Twitter, but you're watching, I was just saying that I'm unsure about my content creation future because I had this big opportunity in wrestling media recently and it didn't quite work out. Just a month in, I'm not really doing steady content for them anymore. So I've been kind of bummed about that, but I'm still going to try to do some content on my own. My work schedule is kind of up in the air, but I really want to say thank you to everyone who reached out on Twitter and who's joining right now. I see Warren's in the chat. Warren, thanks for joining. So thanks, you guys. The support means the world to me. And all the words of encouragement, like keep going, don't quit. That isn't falling on deaf ears at all. And it means a lot that you guys all reached out. Thanks so much. Derek, thanks for joining. And thank you to all of you. So again, we're talking a little wrestling. Mostly the questions I got were more pop culture related, but why not talk wrestling since we're here anyway and we're all wrestling fans, most of us. So overall, if you guys want to see a complete review of Wrestle Kingdom, please check out my friend, Mr. Warren Hayes. He's in the chat right now. His YouTube channel. We did a review together of night 1, and then he reviewed night 2 with my good friend John. So they have a lot of cool things to say on night 2. I watched some of it, but I just finished watching night 2 last night, and I gotta say, when I was reviewing night 1 with Warren, I liked the show, but my favorite moment of Wrestle Kingdom as a whole had to come in night 2 with Suzuki. All of a sudden, we see Mox beats Juice Robinson for the US title, and then we're like, okay, whatever. And then we hear the music hit, and Suzuki's walking down with like this great, amazing smile, like mischievous. It's not even like his normal evil smile. It was more like mischievous smile, like, oh, I'm getting to do what I really want to do. I'm getting to face this guy who's also wanted to face me. So to me, it was like an energy and an excitement right then and there in the building. It felt like I could feel it from home. And I truly marked out. I gotta say, that's the first time in like months I've marked out, like truly marked out. I was like, oh my God. Because they hadn't been, using Suzuki. There was rumors that he was going. So I was really under the belief that Suzuki was like done. And he was just like going off into the sunset. And then to see him challenge Mox was pretty great. Now, I haven't seen New Year's Dash yet, so I'm sure there's more development. So guys, like, please excuse me. Please don't reveal spoilers. And again, thank you all who are joining right now. I see some people in the chat. Okay, Fabe's here. Thanks for joining. How you doing? So yeah, we're talking Wrestle Kingdom real quick before I get into my questions, which are really more pop culture heavy than wrestling heavy. I mean, there might be like one wrestling question in my questions I got, but most of them I like pop culture stuff. So it doesn't bother me that it's mostly related to that. But Wrestle Kingdom was so good. Again, though, I gotta say, if I'm being honest and fair, like brutally honest, everyone really loved Wrestle Kingdom, and so did I. But I gotta say, my favorite Wrestle Kingdoms 10 and 11. Both of those two are really good. And even though I didn't watch Wrestle Kingdom 7, 8, and 9 live, because I didn't know about New Japan Pro Wrestling way back then. Those are really old shows, obviously, since we're now on 14. I didn't watch live then, but I did before one of the Wrestle Kingdoms I first watched live. It was I think it was 11. I had a big marathon right before, and I watched Wrestle Kingdom 7, 8, 9, and then I rewatched 10 before watching 11. Like that same week. It sounds like a daunting big project because as you guys know, like Wrestle Kingdoms are like 5 hours long. I had a lot more free time back then, so I wasn't doing a lot of content. So I could make the time to watch that. That was like my main watching for the week. And trust me, guys, it was a great experience. You guys should try it. It was really interesting, and seeing some stuff from Wrestle Kingdom 7. There was some good stuff in there. I think, which one didn't I like the most? I can't remember. There was one that was definitely more draggy than the others. But yeah, I've seen all the way back to Wrestle Kingdom 7, and I've really liked them all. But again, nothing compares out of all my viewings to 10 and 11. They're just so good. DJ Storm says, Moxley versus Suzuki, take my money. I feel the same way. I mean, I'm super excited about this. This is like my dream come true. I've been saying for like a year, because you rewind back to, and I talked to Warren about this on our review of Night 1 of Wrestle Kingdom. You rewind back to G1 Supercard in New York, and Suzuki didn't have anything big to do, which I think was a huge mistake. He's over in the US. That's the thing. If he were to win the US belt, what a great representative for that belt, because he's so over here. But yet, at G1 Supercard, he really didn't have anything big to do. He was just in the Battle Royal. So to me, it was like, what a waste. The crowd loved him, even though he was only in for a few minutes. That's the thing. Like, utilize who you have and who is over, especially overseas when you're trying to expand and get even bigger overseas. So, really cool. Thank you for the compliments, DJ Storms. I'm just looking through my comments right now. I want to thank you all for joining. It means so much to me. If you got any questions that you want to ask, you can ask them in the chat right now, because the questions that I'm answering today, they're from like a month ago. So if anybody wants to drop new questions, they could be wrestling or pop culture related or whatever, like random stuff related. It doesn't matter. Hi Michael, thank you for commenting and joining. I really appreciate you all. I'm just going through all these comments real quick. Kenta versus Naito at New Beginning should be huge. Kenta is the most hated man in New Japan, and I love it. I mean, I think Kenta's hated, but so is Jay White. They're both really great heels. Kenta coming in, I was like, how is he going to be, looked at in New Japan Pro Wrestling? Because his history is obviously not in that particular promotion in Japan. It's elsewhere. But man, his journey and character development, I think, was a great move to turn him heel. And it's funny, when I was doing my review with Warren, not to keep referencing the review, but somebody said in the comments, Kelsi just loves heels. I guess that's true, because when I think about it, like, everything I comment about is like all these heels I love. I love Sami Callihan. I love Suzuki. There's so many heels that I truly like. And in fact, I talked about how I never boo MJF because I love him, because everything he says is so terrible that it's great somehow. So yeah, maybe I'm just partial to heels, but I think Kenta's better as a heel. This is coming from the person who thinks Ibushi should go heel, which I don't know if a lot of people would agree with me on that, but I'd like to see it, whatever. He had some kind of, I think, little hints of being a little evil in his match against Okada on Night 1. Like, that was extreme to me. All right, let's see. And DJ Storms is agreeing with me that Kenta is a fantastic heel. And he's also agreeing with Warren. All right, so Nigel is saying he's kind of taking the other side of it, saying Suzuki was a big part of the Battle Royal, though, at G1 Supercard. It was a great moment. I agree with you, Nigel. It was a great moment at G1 Supercard, except it could have been a big singles match for him. He could have had something in the mix. Now, I don't think he always needs to have singles, matches. I don't think he always has to have big moments every show. But, at that point, if you go back even further to Wrestle Kingdom 13, he had nothing big there either. So to me, it was just like a string of more than just a few months with nothing big. So that's why it's like, yes, I liked the Battle Royal moment a lot, but people were expecting something huge because he has so many fans in America. And people at that show had been dying to see Suzuki. Not everyone already had. See, I was lucky enough. I had already seen Suzuki, and I got to see him in like some really amazing matches, like some of the best matches ever. I saw him like at Rev Pro in New Orleans, because there was a show there at WrestleCon, and he performed at it. He also, I think he performed at the general WrestleCon show, not just the Rev Pro show at WrestleCon. He also performed, I think, wasn't he in, I went to this G1 show in California, and I think he was there too. So I got to see him a number of times. It might not have been the G1 show. It might have been what other show was there? It might have been that show where the Bucks took on. That is what it is. It was where the Bucks took on the Golden Lovers, whatever show that was. Long time ago. I've been to so many New Japan shows in America, which sounds crazy, but there's only been like so many. But I've been to a lot of them. And I've loved every one because it's like my favorite promotion and favorite product right now. So yeah, I get your point, Nigel, but I gotta say, like, Suzuki could have had an even bigger moment, even though I did like the moment he had. But there were people who were dying to see him who hadn't seen him. Like, I was lucky enough to have seen him, like, in a bigger moment, in a longer match at different points. These people have been waiting for that, and they didn't really get that, like, longer matchup type of thing with him. What was my match of the night at Wrestle Kingdom? Dave is asking. That's hard, man. Because at first I thought it would hands down for the whole weekend. I thought it would be Hiromu versus Ospreay. But then, like, when I saw, I don't know, like when I saw, of course I didn't even get to talk about this. I loved Okada and Naito. I thought that was amazing. In fact, that was super hard hitting and like brutal, had a lot of emotion. So I thought that was pretty great too. There are so many great matches. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I think my favorite moment was the Suzuki thing. And that wasn't really a match, but it got me really hyped. I think that was my favorite moment of the whole weekend. I mean, hands down. But match, I think Okada and Naito, of course. But then close behind Hiromu and Ospreay, I think you can't say enough because it felt so good to see Hiromu with his comeback in such a huge match and then be victorious. Think back right when he got hurt. Everyone was so unsure about everything. And yeah, they were saying he was going to wrestle again. But at the same time, we didn't know how he was going to wrestle again, what the style would be, if it would be different. And, people say that they're going to make a comeback and sometimes they don't, because things pop up in the way. Luckily, that didn't happen with Hiromu, but at the time when he got hurt, we all didn't know what it was going to turn out like. So it was really just good and I think rewarding as a fan of his to see him come back, to see him get a big moment. And if you are a longtime listener of mine or viewer of mine, you know how much I love Ospreay. He's like one of my top two, Suzuki and Ospreay, this whole year and even into last year. They were both my top two wrestlers, my favorites. So to say that I'm glad Hiromu won, that's a big statement because usually Ospreay's my favorite, and in any Ospreay match, I'm rooting for him because I'm so invested for some reason. I get so into his matches and I always root for him. But this time I was kind of rooting for Hiromu, and it was nice to see him win. I will say that. Now, Warren, I didn't see the ceremony at New Year's Dash yet because I haven't fully watched New Year's Dash yet. I was working all day and like some of the evening on Sunday, so I didn't watch anything on Sunday. Watched night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom. I think that was last night. Yeah. Monday night. I'm losing track of time here. So on Monday night, I watched night 2, and I was going to watch New Year's Dash, but I was getting sleepy. We were supposed to watch both things last night. So basically, it's my fault because I was like getting all dreary. And I was like, I can't stay up. When I'm struggling through the main event of night 2 of Wrestle Kingdom, it's bad. It's not that it's boring. It's that I'm like tired as hell. So I couldn't go on and watch New Year's Dash. But I can't wait to watch it. People keep telling me that things are going to get better and to watch New Year's Dash. So something big must have happened. So I can't wait to see it. It's going to be exciting. I hope big things happen because people are building it up to me. So Nigel is asking me, didn't I like Ibushi Okada? It was a classic. I did really like it. And honestly, that would probably be my third favorite match. So those 3 matches, Naito Okada, Ibushi Okada, and then Hiromu and Ospreay, I think were my favorites. My favorite part of the Ibushi Okada match, I think, was when Ibushi kind of went evil for a minute. Like I said a few minutes ago, I'm kind of fond of heels and stuff, but it was like another dark side of Ibushi, and I liked that the crowd didn't outright boo him. They just had like a moment of silence, and like they didn't really know what to do. They were conflicted, and that was kind of cool to see that, to be honest with you, because I don't know. I just thought it was a cool direction to go with it instead of just making him cookie cutter Ibushi, how they always do lately. I don't really like cookie cutter Ibushi. I think he's kind of like, there's something missing there. His wrestling's great, but like in the personality, there's something that feels off there when he's just like, I'm a good guy, whatever. I'm saying all this, but guys, you can take it with a grain of salt because you're listening to, and this might be something like that's a strike against me and you guys' minds, but I am like the only person who rooted for the Young Bucks against the Golden Lovers. We were at that show, and now I remember the name. It's Strong Style Evolved. We're at that show. It was an amazing show, amazing match. And I was literally, there are a lot of Bucks fans, and there were Bucks fans there, people wearing Bucks shirts, but everyone was rooting for the Golden Lovers except me. I was like, no. Just because I never really can connect with Ibushi. I don't know why. So you guys can take what I say about Ibushi with a grain of salt. Yeah, okay, Fabe saying shame, Kelsi, shame, but he's kidding. But it was pretty funny. You guys should have seen me screaming at Strong Style Evolved. It was amazing. I had so much fun. Let's see. People are crying in the chat. I gotta read what that's about later. So lots of big things happened, Dave said at New Year's Dash. Oh man, I'm getting jazzed up to watch it. Please, guys, don't spoil it. So I'm gonna take a break from wrestling. I'll circle back to wrestling because there's tons we could talk about wrestling. It's a really great landscape right now. But you know what this weekend kind of showed me is that nothing compares to New Japan Pro Wrestling. I know that sounds like a huge statement, but I was talking with my friend Anthony from Smark to Death. Check out his channel as well. Him and also, like I said, my friend Warren, both of their channels, two of my favorites. I would really love it if you guys checked out their channels. Anthony was texting me over the weekend being like, sometimes we both talk about how we're, burnt out with the wrestling media world and stuff like that. Like, oh man, it's getting so stressful, stuff like that. We'll go back and forth talking about how we both feel that way. And then he texts me and says, I think it's not that I'm burnt out on wrestling or anything. He's like, it's just like New Japan's the greatest thing out there. It's like totally revived like how I feel about wrestling. I was like, I know, isn't it wonderful? So that's the power of New Japan Wrestling. That's the power of Wrestle Kingdom. You're feeling low, you're feeling down on wrestling a little bit, or maybe just like, there's too much of it to absorb. Then you go and you just chill and you watch a really, really good grade A+ New Japan show and you're like, my faith is restored in wrestling, or I'm not burnt out. But overall, I joke about being burnt out, but it is a great time to be a wrestling fan because there's so much to watch. And, I've been saying this for a year and a half before even AEW popped up, because to me, and Cole Cabana has talked about this with me before, there's like an indie wrestling boom that was happening even before AEW, because as we know, AEW is not really an indie, but there was this indie boom going on around that was kind of, I think, the coals of the fire that lit into what AEW became and what like the bigger and the rise of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So all these indie promotions working hard, kind of gaining more attention, and the whole idea of streaming being available for everyone and all these promotions taking advantage of that was all part of, I think, the insane growth that's happened in the last 2 years or more. Really, it's going back a few years now because things just started to, catch on fire and get better and better with more and more streaming services and streaming devices and ways to watch online. So since then, it's just exploded, and it's great for all fans. But again, the big problem is, and the only problem is that there's so much to watch that, and the market, I should say, is so flooded that there's just not enough time to watch everything. And there's so much that me, as personally, as an audience member and as a fan, I want to watch. I want to watch it all, but you can't watch it all. That's the thing. You got to pick and choose. But it's a good problem to have. So that's pretty cool. Zach is asking me thoughts on the trash fire, his words, Lana quadrangle. This is a good question because I haven't really addressed my thoughts on this yet because we didn't have a podcast last week. We should have one this week, by the way. If you guys are fans of my podcast, Two-Face Wrestling Talk with my co-host Paul, we're planning to do one. Hopefully everything goes okay. Hopefully I have time to do it this week. We'll see. I'm planning on doing it. Let's just say that. So my thoughts on it were, yeah, it's cringy. Yeah, it's weird, but somehow it works. The only part I don't like about it is the whole lesbian angle. And the reason I don't like it is not because of the angle itself. It's because you've got somebody on your roster who's actually gay and wants to do an angle like that, but got turned down. And so then you go to someone who isn't gay and then make them play like gay for a gay storyline in like a jokey type of storyline. So to me, it's kind of like a slap in the face to poor Sonya Deville, because, and that's why she reacted. Like if you followed her on Twitter and everyone was talking about how she was just like, my mind's blown right now after that part happened in the Lana Lashley wedding angle. So to me, the wedding would have been like so bad it was good it would have been enough without that angle. You could have done everything you did without that. Even though I do think that added to some of the views on YouTube. I guess maybe that was part of the draw, that it was so outrageous that they went that direction and so out of like left field, out of nowhere. I'm sure nobody really even thought, hey, Liv Morgan's gonna re-debut with her makeover, and it's gonna be because she was in love with Lana and she's gonna be all different now and all this stuff. I will say I didn't see Raw last night. We just started watching it before I started this stream. So we're about like 20 minutes into Raw. I don't know if more was developed with that storyline, but I just think, like, why not do what Sonya Deville wants with a storyline with her separately, with nothing to do with the Lana Lashley thing. The Lana Lashley thing had plenty to play off of without going down that path, in my opinion. So I don't know. I gotta say, I love Troll 2. It's one of the best worst movies of all time. I've talked about that on this channel before in the past. And to me, the Lana Lashley wedding was so bad, like Troll 2, that it was good. We were like, man, this is funny. Like the makeup on her face, some of the ridiculous stuff that happened, like just her overacting, which I actually am starting to kind of like, which is so weird that I'm saying that. Guys, don't hate me. It's like, I like Troll 2. So to me, it was like on that level. DJ Storm says, terrible storyline. Lana Lashley Rusev has gone on for almost 4 months. Just end it. We don't need any soap opera storylines and sports-driven product. That's why the main roster product is failing. I agree with a lot of what you say, Storms. I really do. The thing is, it really, in a way, worked because the numbers on YouTube were up. I'm not saying it was great. Believe me, I've been trashing this storyline from the beginning, saying like, oh, why do we have to do this? It's a different day and age. This is like Attitude Era bullshit. But like, it was funny and it was watchable. So I gotta say, I don't know. I'm like torn on it because yes, I want it to end, but it did what it had to do. So I think it was effective overall, and it pains me to say it because I can't believe I'm even like uttering those words that it worked, but it did. But it has been kind of cringeworthy, I gotta say, and just over the top, ridiculous, absurd. It just feels like it's out of another time. It really does. But obviously, there's some kind of draw there because, was it my friend Josh? Somebody I had read a tweet that they said, no, it was their podcast. They were talking about, reality TV is what everyone likes today. They like to see like everyone fighting. They like to see like Jersey Shore stuff, like the fights, the drama, the ridiculousness, the random, like you would almost think, and I'm in TV. I know people in TV who've worked on reality TV. There is an element of it being scripted. It's not all real, but that's what this storyline reminded me of is the scripted reality type of show, like Jersey Shore or Keeping Up with the Kardashians even, but to a more extreme level. Obviously way more scripted for the wrestling Lana Lashley angle. But, that's the stuff that sells today. That stuff is over. Sometimes Basketball Wives, like, beats wrestling programming. To me, that's nuts. Like, who's watching, like, Basketball Wives? And please take no offense if you guys watch Basketball Wives. I don't. I don't like that programming very much, but I think that's why they're doing it, DJ. I think that's why they're going that direction, and then they're just sticking with it over and over and over again. And yet the YouTube numbers don't mean anything in the end, but in their mind, I'm sure it means, hey, this is working. So the storyline it ain't putting butts in the seats. It probably isn't, but I will say, after seeing all of the stuff people were tweeting about Lana Lashley, I was like, I've got to watch it. So although it might not have put butts in the seats, like in person, it made me tune in and watch Raw. I was like, I have to go watch that part of Raw. So like, that's something right there, I got to say. I'm not saying I like it though. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like defending it or anything. I'm just saying it kind of worked. Zach is telling me that they ignored the lesbian thing on Raw. Well, so they're not even running with it. So what was the point of even going down that angle on what's going to happen with Liv down the line? I don't know. Head Cheese, hi. Thanks for watching, and thanks all of you guys who are watching right now. If you're just joining recently, appreciate you guys tuning in. We're doing some wrestling talk before I jump into my Q&A questions that I have from like a month ago. Like I said, they're mostly pop culture related, but that's why I wanted to get some wrestling talk in. Warren is saying WWE constantly pimps out its social numbers. The YouTube numbers do matter. So he's kind of arguing against what DJ's saying about them not mattering. I like this. Good debate here. And respectful too. So it's no big deal. There's nothing wrong with respectful debate when everyone's doing it in a nice way. That's what I always say. It's my motto. Paul always makes fun of me because it's my motto. Oh, and we've got metal_2006 here too. Thanks for joining. So glad you're here. Appreciate you. So I'm just going through looking to see if there's any more wrestling stuff we could talk about. I'm really excited for AEW tomorrow. Can't wait to see that show. That should be a lot of fun. More talk about the Lonnie. Dyslexia, what's wrong? More talk about the Lana Lashley angle in the comments here. Man, this is a divisive storyline, but see, that's the thing. It's getting people talking. And in wrestling, like, you go back many years, and in wrestling, they'd always tell you, it doesn't matter if you're getting booed or cheered, as long as you're getting a reaction. That's the whole thing. You don't want to come out and it be silent. And this Lana Lashley angle is getting a reaction. That's the thing. It's getting a reaction. Warren and DJ still going back and forth about the YouTube numbers mattering or not mattering. I like this. Keep going, guys. And Head Cheese says it's a good motto. My motto about having respectful debates. Thanks. Appreciate that. Bob Culture Podcast, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you. How you doing? Thoughts on the usage of Aleister Black? I love Aleister Black. I think he could be a champion one day, and I'm talking about like a main champion. I think he should win at every turn. I mean, I'm really, really happy about him being featured a lot. His matches with Buddy Murphy recently. Now, I will say, I don't know if you're just joining Bob Culture Podcast. I talked about how I hadn't seen Raw this week. So I don't know if something happened with Aleister, but I did see his Buddy Murphy matches, the last few. I think it was Raw last week or whenever that was, the latest one. That one was great. Amazing. Those guys can tear down the house. Just amazing. So, I love Aleister Black. I think he should be used to the fullest. That's the answer to the question. Has one of the best entrances to me in all of wrestling right now. It's really unique. Nobody's doing something like that where they rise up out of the floor. It could have been corny, but he makes it work. This is a funny question, and I'll answer it. Diego, yo, you ever super kick someone? Sorry if I'm off topic. Well, my YouTube name is Super Kicking It with Kelsi, so it's technically on topic, because it does kind of beg the question. You're saying super kicking it with Kelsi. Have you actually super kicked anyone? Well, I've pretended to super kick people really badly, and my trailer on my YouTube channel has me super kicking like little words. I've edited little words, like, so I kick, the words flies out. Cool little editing effect that took forever when I was first learning how to edit to do that. But I haven't really officially super kicked anybody like in wrestling or anything. But I will say this one cool time, and it was not really fully shown on Being the Elite, but the first time I met Kenny Omega, I had already met the Young Bucks quite a few times. I used to dress up in a Young Bucks costume where I had like this stupid Nick doll that, like, because I was Matt and I had a little mask and my outfit, and then I had a Nick doll, and when I met Kenny Omega, they were like filming it for like BTE, and I was like, I'm gonna do something stupid and funny. I'm gonna make the fake Nick doll super kick Kenny Omega. So I'm like, pew! And then Omega sold it like he got super kicked in the face. He was like, oh, it was awesome. And I have some of the footage. I put it somewhere. Oh, I do need to make someone a mod. Thanks for reminding me, Kristen. Maybe you'll be the mod. I'll put you as the mod. And also, good guy Dave. Where are you, Dave? I know you don't mind. I'll make you a secondary mod. All right, I got moderators now. Thanks for reminding me about that, Kristen. These guys fighting in the chats. So yes, I like to get back to the question at hand about the super kicks. Kind of yes, kind of no. Super kicking's fun. Kristen, everyone can be scared because she's a moderator now. Scared. I can't even say that right. I can't do the inflection on what needs to be, how it needs to be said. Ridiculous. DJ Storm says, off topic, he's watching The Nun right now. Fantastic movie. Haven't seen it. That's pretty great though. I can't remember the last movie I've watched. let's really quickly, guys, and feel free to drop some pop culture questions if you want, because now we're getting into the pop culture part of the talk, and we talked a little bit about Wrestle Kingdom, which, as I said, to recap, I loved. But let's get into some of my questions that I got about a month ago in December. So I'm going to start off with my question from @GGG212203. He asked me, and his name's Greg, if you had to create an ultimate concert for yourself, 2 opening acts and 1 headliner, they can be from any time, they could be broken up or together, you could have them in their prime, who would you choose? Now, he didn't say that they could be passed away, members of them could be passed away, but that's the direction I went in. So my ultimate concert. All right. Of course, I always cheat and do more answers than people ask for. So I put way more than I should have put. So he asked for 2 opening acts and a headliner. So my opening acts, NSYNC, because as a kid, I know this sounds corny, I was a huge NSYNC fan and I never got to see them live ever. Now Justin Timberlake's I'm Too Good, I'm not going to get back with my boys. I would pay big money for a reunion tour. So in my dream world, my dream concert, the first opening act would be NSYNC, of course, with JT included in that, in their prime, back in the 90s. Heck yeah, that just speaks to my 90s kid heart for sure. Then I'm kind of cheating here by saying my second opening act would be the combination of 2 bands together on stage, Rush, yeah, and Coheed and Cambria. Very similar styles, progressive rock, really badass. Imagine the concert. Imagine them on stage together and the singing voices of Claudio and Geddy Lee. Just blows my mind. So that's kind of like not playing by the rules, but I don't care. It's my stream. I'm going to say more answers than I'm supposed to. And then my headliner, of course, the Beatles. And I'm talking the Beatles with John Lennon, the Beatles with George Harrison. Yes, I know they passed away. I'm having them back. All of them together, my boys. That's one of my favorite bands of all time. I've liked them since I was like 6 or 7 years old. For as long as I can remember, every birthday, my mom and dad, members of my family would always get me a Beatles-themed present, at least one, every birthday. It never failed. In fact, there was a few birthdays that I would get a replica of a CD or, at the time, when I was really young, a tape, an audio cassette tape that I already had. They'd give me duplicates, but they didn't know that I already had them. But I would be like, thank you. And then I'd be like, Dad, I already have this one. And we'd try to figure out what to do. But love the Beatles. So that would be my headliner. And here's where I'm also going against the rules. And I would say, okay, so like the band that comes on like after the headliner, even though that doesn't really happen, I would have Outkast close out the show. That's so random, but it's amazing. I saw Big Boy, who's one half of Outkast, obviously. It's Andre 3000 and Big Boy. I saw Big Boy by himself solo many years ago. It was one of the best concerts ever. I know that sounds crazy, but it was one of my favorite concerts. And he played Outkast songs by himself. Andre 3000 wasn't there, but it was incredible. So I know that's not really playing by the rules of the question, but that's my ultimate concert. And I think it would be awesome and amazing. Ghost Beatles, exactly, Kristen. It'd be like, how they brought Tupac back in hologram, but instead there'd be ghosts. So I just love John Lennon. I wish he was alive when I was alive, because I think he'd have a lot to say about what's going on in the world today. One of the most genius minds in all of music, in my opinion. A really fascinating guy. And also had his fair share of problems, of course, which that's a whole different story. But yeah, the Beatles, I've got like 20 Beatles books. They're definitely very near and dear to my heart, for sure. Diego said, thank you for mentioning Rush. I've been looking for Tom Sawyer and didn't know what song it was. Yeah, I love Tom Sawyer. It's great. No, but Dave, they wouldn't be holograms. I'm saying they've made holograms of people who have passed away, like Tupac, for instance. They did this whole hologram thing, I think. People think it's weird, but for my version of the Beatles, it would be the original Beatles. Like, they'd be back together. Like, I'd go back in time and be able to see them. So it's like a dream scenario concert. That's how it would work, basically. I know it's an epic, random concert, but hell, it's my concert, and I'd pay $1 billion to be there. I don't even have $1 billion, but whatever. I wish I was a gamer. I've got Zombies of Horror Show asking me if I'm looking forward to PlayStation 5. I'm a casual gamer, so like Mario games are my jam. I know this sounds crazy, but when I had my Wii U, I loved Splatoon. I wish I would have gotten the new Wii to get the new Splatoon, but I never did. I was like, I'm going to save money and not get it. There's also a random Nickelodeon racing game. It's almost like, Mario Kart, but with Nickelodeon characters. I was like, I want that, but I never got that either. But yeah, I'm more into like, casual games. I never really got into games because I'm always bad and die in them. I'm like, it's not for me. I just watch movies. Movies are my thing. Movies and good TV shows that I can watch like a billion times. All right, so next question. So again, another question from Greg, and I think this is a great question. So I was like, yeah, 2 questions, it doesn't matter. Again, he's at triple G 212203. What do you think is the biggest pop culture event that happened in the last decade? If that's too far back, then what about in the last 5 years? And I went crazy on this, and I listed 10 things that are like big pop culture events, in my opinion, of the last decade. And I've got an honorable mention, which makes it 11. So again, I never play by the number rules. And this is why Paul always makes fun of me during our podcast. Like, you always answer too many. You're supposed to like keep it to the numbers. Oh well. All right, so some of these are not really significant overall, but they are to me. I'll explain them as I go. All right, so I really think it's a big deal. It's not really an event per se, but it's the 90s nostalgia coming back into prominence. I think that's huge for everybody. If you're a fan of the 90s like me, you're like really excited. Your 90s kids heart is happy and you're like, yes, this is amazing that everything's back in style that I loved as a kid. Everything's popular again and people are kind of paying attention to that stuff. For instance, like Rocko's Modern Life kind of coming back into prominence and getting a reboot. Also, another thing getting a reboot is Are You for the Dark, which I loved. It was not the show, like they're not making a full-length show, but they might. I hope they do. They did like a mini, like almost like a mini movie. It was a 3-parter. It was wonderful, a standalone episode, and it kind of mixed like it mixed the kids telling the stories with the actual story. It was very different. It was a different take on the Midnight Society. It was really cool. I loved it. And I'm not just talking about 90s Nickelodeon coming back and being popular again. I'm talking all kinds of nostalgic 90s stuff coming back, like the clothing styles, like lots of flowers. I'm wearing plaid. Stuff like that is back in. And I like that because when something's in, which I think is a lame phrase, but when it's in, it's easily accessible, it's easy to find, it's easy to get to. So to me, I'm happy that that's back. And to be fair, everyone's into the 90s now, but I was missing the 90s way back in 2003, and I've got proof. So back in 2003, I was about to go into high school, and so I had it was called a memory party. That's what I called it. And I invited all of my elementary school friends, and it was basically like a 90s party. And it was just 2003. So we're only like 3 years removed from the 90s. I'm already like, I miss the 90s. I had like NSYNC and Britney Spears like cut out like on a piece of paper. Their heads like were all decorated all over. I had this like thematic cake. I had like a tablecloth that had all these old TV shows that we all used to watch. I like used little stick-on letters to decorate the tablecloth, write the names of the shows. So yeah, I mean, I know it's cool to like the 90s now, but I was missing them back in 2003 and wishing that it was back. I was already like lamenting the loss of like Nickelodeon shows that I had loved. But it's so cool to see people talk about Rocko's Modern Life now. And I just rewatched it in its entirety, the original show. It's even better than I remember as a kid. It's crazy. And Rugrats actually really holds up too. But like I said, it's not just 90s Nickelodeon. It's all kinds of cool 90s thing. And that brings me to my second talking point about big pop culture events of the last decade. I think the launch of Disney Plus, although it just happened like in 2019, I think that's a huge part of the decade because it's obviously a really big deal and it's going to kind of usher in the next decade. I think it's just like a big move in terms of content, in terms of streaming. And again, a lot of 90s shows from Disney are now on Disney Plus. So to me, it's like, yes, I love Disney Plus. I'm really big into that. Josh, thanks for joining us. I'm seeing that you're in the chat. I was just talking about you and how you like the Lana Lashley angle, and I was kind of defending the angle a little bit because although it's corny, it's working. And I know you like the angle too, so I was talking all about that. And now, yes, like you're commenting right now, we're talking about Disney Plus. It's fantastic. I've got another question of my Q&A that was, that has to do with Disney Plus later that I'll get to. And yeah, I'm sorry about the bushfires, Josh. That's crazy that your hometown, like your home country, is burning like that. It's scary. It's horrible. I'm going to retweet your tweet later. I just haven't had a chance to. The one that's, trying to raise awareness and everything. So I definitely will retweet that later tonight, right after I'm done, in fact. All right, so big pop culture events from the decade. So I just said 90s nostalgia coming back, the launch of Disney Plus. Then I'm going to go with Stranger Things. Now, if you look up an official list of biggest pop culture events of the last decade, everybody, almost every list I looked at, because after I made my list, I kind of wanted to see what the official lists were, just out of curiosity. Almost every list had the Netflix show House of Cards, and I started to watch that, but didn't complete it. I like the idea of House of Cards, but the whole thing is the reason I put Stranger Things over that as a big pop culture event is because yes, House of Cards kind of brought Netflix into the prominence of like streaming and creating their own content and kind of made them a bigger company in everyone's homes. I do think that's important. I don't want to downplay that, but at the same time, I think Stranger Things is more universal and more easy to love for everyone of all ages, and it's an easier show to watch. And I think for Netflix, it's almost as important, if not more important, than House of Cards. A lot less uh, drama or surrounding there's no drama surrounding any of the actors. Everyone loves, kids. Everyone loves the 80s. It plays on nostalgia. So to me, it's easy to market that show more so than it is House of Cards. And House of Cards definitely has a place in Netflix history and in the history of the last decade with big events that have happened because it basically changed streaming. So many companies like Amazon started their own shows, after Netflix kind of started to pave the way with House of Cards. But again, I'm putting down Stranger Things. I think it was huge. Everyone kept telling me I didn't jump on the bandwagon right away. Everyone was like, "You got to watch Stranger Things, you'll love it." I'm like, I'm sure it's overhyped like everything that everyone watches and says is good is. But then I gave it a chance and I was like, "Oh my god, they're right. It is the greatest show ever." So now it's one of my favorite shows of all time, and to be honest with you, I'm so glad I gave it a chance. Really great. Dave, I will answer what I'm watching on Disney Plus because it actually has to do with another question I was asked. So I will talk about what I've been watching on Disney Plus. Good question there. And Warren's saying, "Yeah, Stranger Things. Yeah, it's amazing." God, it's one of my favorite shows. That Never Ending Story, where they sang the song from Never Ending Story in the last season. Oh my God, I marked out. I knew all the words because I like Never Ending Story a lot. Um, it's ridiculous that I knew the words, but I was like, "Oh my god, they're singing Never Ending Story." It was one of my favorite parts of the whole season. I will say, as they're getting older, it's going to be harder, I think, to rate the show because already this last season to me had a different kind of feel because they're not as young and innocent and just I don't know. It's a different feel as they're getting older and becoming more mature, but that's okay. That's how growing up is. So to me, it's still going to be good, just different than when the first season aired, for instance. All right. So I think more Star Wars movies coming out is a big pop culture event of the last decade. You can't not mention Star Wars. It's been relevant throughout so many decades, but more content coming out, I just think shows how Star Wars continues to thrive year after year, and it'll always be around in our culture. And it'll be a huge part of pop culture history for all time, I think. And this last decade, I think, definitely just cemented that fact for sure. And of course, if we talk about Star Wars, we can't not talk. I'm getting all tongue twisted. If we talk about Star Wars, we can't not talk about Marvel and DC just exploding onto the scene. Everyone doing superhero movies. Like, I've enjoyed them, I gotta say. I love Marvel movies. And honestly, DC movies aren't usually my favorite, except for the Batman, like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, those I love. But in terms of DC, what I like is their animated movies. I think they have really great, and they're not really for kids either. They're kind of dark and edgy. The animation's really different and good. So if you guys haven't checked out any DC animated movies, I would go. You can find a whole bunch of them on Amazon. So go just search for it and you could find a whole bunch. But of course, then we've got Marvel, and I think they're better at live action movies, and I've enjoyed everything they've done, all kinds of different iterations of Spider-Man, but I've enjoyed them all. Like, they're all different um in their own way, but just so much good stuff. And obviously it's popular. I would be remiss if I didn't say the final Harry Potter movie coming out, although that happened at the beginning of the decade in about, I think it was 2000, obviously 2011, right at the start. You can't not say that. I saw it live. I saw it with my cousin Dana. Her and I like loved Harry Potter. I made because she had actual like Harry Potter replica glasses. This is before I wore glasses. I wore contacts back then because my eyes have always been bad. But so at the time I was wearing contacts. She had like actual replica Harry Potter glasses. I made some out of flipping, what are those things called? Pipe, those little pipe cleaner bendy things that you would use from craft stores. So I literally like made it and it was all bendy and horrible. And then I used like this straw as a wand. So she had the legit glasses and I had like the knockoff. I made random terrible glasses. And it was awesome. We also like drew little lightning bolts on our head. But it was a lot of fun. And once, the movie was over, I was like, man, it's over. It's really over. Little did I know, like there was this big, huge, theme park being planned. And I have gone to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in Universal. It's amazing. If you guys haven't been there, you got to go. The butterbeer. Oh my God, the frozen butterbeer. That's the best. So to me, like, Harry Potter. In fact, I'm wearing my Hogwarts shirt right now. Hogwarts. So yeah, I love Harry Potter. I'm sure there's Harry Potter magnets somewhere on these boards behind me. There's a lot of Breaking Bad, I know. So you're over there. There's also Bill Murray. It's weird doing the opposite. There's also Bill Murray right there. So got lots of pop culture stuff behind me. All right. So we're talking about big pop culture events. I like this comment. So Josh says, Spider-Man, my favorite is Tom Holland. He's fantastic. Yeah, he's pretty great, I gotta say. The Killing Joke was epic, says Priscilla. Yeah, it was epic. I know some people didn't like the movie. I mean, the actual book is really, really good, which I've read. Some people didn't like the animated movie. But yeah, those movies are hardcore, the DC movies. Like, you can't take them lightly. You can't just go with kids, because they're extreme sometimes. We've got another argument, like a good-natured debate happening in the chat. DJ Storms is saying, Tobey Maguire will always be the best Spider-Man. Don't at me. Well, I will say, that part where he like comes out and dances when he's like, the Venom, the third movie. Oh my God, that's so ridiculous. The new Venom stuff's so much better than that. Like, one, I really hated who they had playing. I forgot the actor's name. Who played Venom in those movies, from the 70s show. I was like, what the hell? This is so wrong. This is casted terribly. I hated it. But yeah, Tobey Maguire is he's low-key funny. Go, Webb, go! Go, go! Whatever he did in the first one. I still laugh at some stuff from there, I gotta say. Derek is asking, you like Breaking Bad? Awesome show. Yes, I like Breaking Bad, and I'm trying to rewatch it right now so I could finally watch the El Camino movie on Netflix. So we're basically, I think we've got 8 episodes left, and then we'll have rewatched the whole series. It's taken us like 2 or 3 months because we can't watch them as much as like we would if we had more free time. But we fit some in here and there, and it's been so much fun rewatching. This is how much I like Breaking Bad. I've probably seen it in its entirety like 5 different times throughout the years. I love that show. I gotta say, there's a lot of shows I would call the greatest of all time, but I think number one for me has to be Breaking Bad in terms of a drama. Perfectly written, perfectly acted and casted. Just, it blows my mind. And the cinematography. It's like, I can go on forever about that show. All right, so moving on. I know I've got a lot of topics here about the biggest pop culture events of the last decade. This isn't really an event, but I really like how everyone is obsessed with Bob Ross and Bill Murray. I think those are kind of like cultural icons at this point, and I think they've become cultural icons, although Bill Murray, of course, made movies before in the 90s and the 80s and in past decades, but I feel like they've really exploded in this past decade from, the last 10 years. I really do think that people just love Bob Ross more than ever. For some reason, people gravitate towards him. I don't know why. He's just so zen. His episodes are on Netflix. There's a whole Twitch channel about him. I watch his shows to relax. I don't paint, but just watching him go from a blank canvas to like a masterpiece is just insane. Like, how can someone be that talented? It's crazy. And, PBS, I work for a PBS affiliate. So there you go. It's almost written in my work contract that I have to like Bob Ross. So there you go. And Kristen says she was obsessed with Bill Murray since she was like 4. So I feel you there, Kristen. I've been loving Bill Murray and his work for most of my life, especially in my early preteens. Not 4 per se, but pretty early in my preteens, like 12 or 13. I really loved Bill Murray. And I just think that universally, though, his popularity has grown like in the masses just even more than in previous decades. I just think everyone loves him. I think the myth of Bill Murray has grown, and that's what is leading to his epic rise in popularity. I just think that people hear of all these stories of people meeting Bill Murray and these crazy stories, like him covering somebody's eyes and saying, "No one will ever believe you," to a random fan, and him crashing wedding photos, stuff like that. People can't believe that it happens, but it does. I've watched documentaries, I've read books about it. He's amazing. How can you not love him? Kristen says she only wanted to watch Ghostbusters and she can only assume it was because of him. Yeah, my dad and I watched Ghostbusters and he was always my favorite Ghostbuster. Always. Warren saying Bob Ross is a Zen master. Dave agrees. Bob Ross is so relaxing. I'll tell you this about Bob Ross. This is funny. So I take a lot of flights this past year because I had a companion pass with Paul. So every time he flew, I get to fly along for like $5. It was like nothing. And a lot of times he'll get paid to like go somewhere for work. So I'll go along and it's like basically free almost. So while going with him, on a flight, you can download Netflix movies and watch it on your phone or shows or whatever. There's a few titles you can download. I would always download Bob Ross. And even when I was taking flights by myself, it never failed. The person next to me, because I'm always in the middle seat somehow, the person next to me would always end up watching my phone and we'd always end up like talking about Bob Ross. They'd be like, "It's amazing what he can do on the canvas, right?" It doesn't matter. Like I sat next to, all kinds of different people, women, men. It doesn't matter, old, young. They all loved Bob Ross when I was watching it, and they all gravitated towards my phone, and they were like looking at it with me. And so I would just turn it to them, and we'd end up watching it together. It's kind of weird. Paul was joking, like, if you want to like relax on a flight and not talk to people, you shouldn't be watching Bob Ross. I was like, I know, everyone loves him. That's just the power of Bob Ross there. Bring anybody together on a flight. If you guys don't believe me, try it. Yeah, I swear to you, it will happen to you too. They'll see what you're watching and they'll watch it along with you. All right, so more big pop culture events. This is really kind of wrestling related and it's personal. It's obviously not a huge pop culture event for, crossover purposes like other stuff. But I think in the wrestling world, it's a huge pop culture event. Being the Elite, the success of that show on YouTube, and really kind of crossing over somewhat into mainstream pop culture, with the Hot Topic deals. I think that's huge for wrestling, and it's obviously a huge part of the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega's success, and I think it's a part of the foundation of AEW. There's a lot of factors at play why AEW came and rose to prominence. I think you can't omit Being the Elite out of that conversation. You've got to talk about Being the Elite as a show if you're going to talk about the success and the rise of AEW and even the rise of the Young Bucks in general. That show has so much to do with all of that, in my opinion. So you got to put that on the list of big pop culture things and events of the last decade, in my opinion. Blockbuster dying and the rise of streaming. I kind of talked about this earlier. Streaming obviously has a huge effect on the wrestling landscape because we could all watch any promotion we want at any time, as I indicated earlier in this stream. But I think the death of Blockbuster is the sad part of that. Like the sad result of that streaming boom is that we got the Blockbuster death. And I used to love going on a Friday night. Just literally I would spend like an hour going up and down the aisles over and over again. What should I get today? Now, I will say there's nothing more frustrating than during October when you would go to Blockbuster. You'd go to the horror movie section, which was super slim and small, by the way. There was hardly any good choices. So I got to say, streaming is better because you could watch anything you want. I could rent, if I didn't own Hellraiser, which I do, I could just rent Hellraiser if I wanted, or it could be, streaming free somewhere, for all I know. But there's options. But back when there was only Blockbuster, you'd be hoping to rent Hellraiser. You'd look down the aisle and you'd be like, damn it, someone rented it. And you'd look in the returns, it was gone. You were disappointed. And that's the thing. It sucks. But I still miss Blockbuster, even though you couldn't always find what you wanted. It was an experience going there. It was something to do. It was kind of like a social thing, It was a lot of fun. And it was also... You always hated when you were in for too long because then you're like, man, I've been going up and down the aisles forever. Just make a decision. The employees are looking at you. The pressure feels like it's on. You got to make a decision. You got to get home and watch the movie. And then if you don't watch the movie right away, the pressure to return it, that's also huge. So yeah, streaming has its plus sides, but I do miss Blockbuster. I'll say that. And then, I know this is kind of silly, and this just happened at the end of the decade, but, they did that E.T. commercial. I know that sounds silly, but I love E.T., and so seeing, like, actual Elliot, the actor who played Elliot, come back for that commercial, I cried while watching that commercial. I teared up. I love E.T. so much. I actually saw an orchestra play along with E.T. Locally in New Orleans not that long ago. It was like a year ago. And actually, I'm about to go see the same orchestra. It's called the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra. They're going to play Harry Potter. I think it's not this Friday, but next Friday. I'm so excited to go. I love Harry Potter, as I was saying a few minutes ago. And so I know that ET commercial's a stretch, and it's really not going to be on anybody's list, but it's on my personal list because I was like, oh my god, this is the greatest commercial I've ever seen, and it really was. I mean, I've seen it like 6 times, and I get choked up every time, I gotta say. And then finally, my honorable mention. So that was 10 things I think are big things that happened in the last decade that have, that are related to pop culture or in pop culture. I think my honorable mention personally, and this is kind of silly, it has to be Star Trek The Next Generation getting remastered and released on Blu-ray. If you guys know anything about the behind the scenes of that remaster, the things they did to make that happen is just insane. It's one of the most costly remaster projects that they've ever done because they couldn't just like redo it. They had to essentially rebuild some of the effects from the original negatives to make it HD. And also then, so you do all this work, and they had to sell it for a lot of money. So it was like a risk. The cost of it was just so insane. But the fans wanted it. And I don't know how much they made back on it, but to me, I'm just glad they did it. So when you go on Netflix and what you see now, if you watch Star Trek The Next Generation, you see like the remastered, restored version. And a lot of like the effects have been redone, like just rebuilt from scratch. It's insane. So how I know that is when you go and watch the Blu-ray, like there's these bonus features that just describe just the crazy lengths that they went to redo this show. It was so time consuming. And like I said, not to mention very costly, but in my opinion, it's worth it because it's nothing like when I first watched it. When I first watched it, I used to rent DVDs from Netflix. So I had to wait and get like 3 at a time. And it was just grainy, VHS quality essentially, because you're not watching in HD, you're watching in SD. So to me, just to see it so crisp and clear. Now there is some graininess issues that you come across in the shows every now and then, but man, I'm very excited for Picard. Warren is saying he's excited. Dave is saying he's excited. I'm in the middle, not only of rewatching Breaking Bad, but I'm also in the middle of rewatching The Next Generation. I only have really gotten to season 3 on The Next Generation. I've been working on this project for months. It's hard to fit in with all my wrestling watching, but every time I have a chance, I just rewatched The Sins of the Father, which is an episode about Worf and his family honor coming into question, but it really isn't his family. It's basically like the Klingons were trying to use Worf as a scapegoat because they didn't think he would come back into the Klingon world and contest his family being dishonored, but he did. And they were trying to kind of take attention away from the real person's family who was dishonored, which would essentially start almost like a civil war in the Klingon not Enterprise. The Klingons, they would basically go into a civil war if this was discovered. So they were trying to blame Worf, and Worf, being as cool as he is, was just like, okay, I am a Klingon. I don't want the Klingons to go into civil war. I will take on this and like basically excommunicate myself from the Klingons for this. Picard was in it, and it was just, there's some great acting between Picard and Worf in this episode, one of my favorites. And I think, to me, every great episode of TNG has something in common. It's either centered around Picard, centered around Worf, or centered around Data. To me, those are the 3 best characters, and any episode about any of those 3 is just gold, in my opinion. Zach says, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, and Prince leaving us didn't make the pop culture list. All that's depressing stuff. Like, I try to keep it upbeat with my stuff, like good stuff that happened, not really like, oh man, we lost all these people. But yeah, those were some big losses, man. We had a string of them, like in a short succession, like I know. And also like David Bowie. I mean, that was heartbreaking. I love David Bowie. So many artists, so many great talents just lost. It's such a shame. But, the world is better for having had their talent and been able to experience their talent, I am watching Better Call Saul, and I love Better Call Saul. I do think, Bob Culture is asking me about Better Call Saul. I do think that the show Better Call Saul is a little less action-packed and fast-paced as Breaking Bad. And that's obvious. I mean, just the subject matter is different. But I love it because it's definitely a character examination. Like, God, you dive so deeply into the psyche of Saul, and you find out so much about his motivations behind his actions and just his personality. So much stuff about him is explained in Better Call Saul. It is great, and I am caught up on that. However, I did not see the Breaking Bad movie yet. That's why I'm watching Breaking Bad right now. I'm rewatching it so that I can watch the movie and be refreshed and like go into the movie right after we finish the finale. So hopefully I'm hoping in the next week or two that I'll get to the Breaking Bad movie. Maybe 3 weeks at the most. Again, we have about 8 episodes left. So hopefully it's right around the corner. All right, so that was my list of pop culture events. I know it was long. Thanks for dealing with me. That's the longest answer I have. The rest are quick, I promise. All right, Derek at Derek Stark, who was in the chat with us a few minutes ago. What's your favorite Christmas movie? And now this is a real doozy. Which AEW or WWE stars would you put in your own Christmas movie, and what would the plot be? Mission Impossible with a Christmas storyline, etc., or just a plain old Mary Jane man falls in love with a woman, blah, blah. It would never be a plain old Mary Jane movie for me. Never, never, never. My favorite Christmas movies, 3. Home Alone 2. And yes, I like Home Alone 2 better than Home Alone 1, although I also love Home Alone 1. But yeah, Home Alone 2 is number 1. Jingle All the Way. Terrible ratings. If you look on Rotten Tomatoes, doesn't matter to me. It's incredible. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. I don't know. And Big Show's in it randomly. He's one of the big Santas in one scene. I didn't find that out till much later because when I first liked it as a kid, I didn't know about wrestling back then. So, but I love that movie. And then finally, of course, Die Hard. And yes, I'm sure a debate will start in the comments here. I believe it's a Christmas movie. There's a flippin' Christmas party in the movie. That's where he's going, to a Christmas party, an office Christmas party. And there's Christmas music, although it's a Christmas rap. It doesn't matter. It's a Christmas movie, and it's cold. So anyway, and if I was going to make it wrestling related, which I actually have done on my podcast before, because you guys know I mix pop culture topics with wrestling sometimes. A long, long time ago, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, Paul and I recast Die Hard with wrestlers. And if I remember correctly, what I said was, all I remember was we were recasting who Hans Gruber would be, a wrestler. So everyone had all these heel answers, because obviously Gruber is the bad guy. But I said that at the end, my Die Hard wrestling movie, Vince McMahon would come up and it would be like a backstabbing, and he would push Gruber instead of McLean falling off the tower. He would push Gruber because he's the one who hired Gruber to rob Nakatomi Tower. Vince, he hired Gruber. But at the end, he's like, F you, Gruber, the money is mine. And he walks up and he pushes him off the ledge. That's how my Die Hard went. So Vince McMahon was the mastermind, and he ended up killing Hans Gruber. That's sad, but that's what happens in my Die Hard movie. But if I were to recast, like, let's say, McLean, I would cast Jon Moxley, because I could just see him being perfect in that role, cursing, being a little goofy, but also kind of like hardcore, walking around with no shoes or socks, barefoot, stepping on glass. That's total Mox. I think it's a perfect casting for wrestling Die Hard. And Gruber himself, I don't know who could be Gruber. I guess MJF would be a good Gruber. Then Vince McMahon would come in, like I said, push him off the ledge. MJF would be like, no, I got taken. So yeah. And Die Hard was filmed during Christmas holidays. I don't know if that's true, but I love Christmas and I love Die Hard, and I think it goes together. I really do. I really believe it's a Christmas movie. Priscilla has some good choices here. It's a Wonderful Life, A Christmas Story, Gremlins, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, Scrooge, Plane, Trains, and Automobiles. All great movies. I especially like Gremlins. I just actually saw that for the first time, and I watched it, of course, during October on accident. I should have watched it during December. Whatever. If I had it to do over again, I would have. It's not that big of a regret, though. I still had fun watching it. All right, so that's a great question, Derek. Thanks for that. Then we've got my great friend at Deej Kirby. Nickelodeon and horror movies. He knows I love both. So he asked me, one you can watch whenever you see fit, and one goes away forever. Which do you keep? Nickelodeon or horror movies? Man, this is hard. It's like the hardest question ever. If you guys know me, You know I love Halloween and horror, and you know I love 90s Nickelodeon. That's like the two things that define me the most, besides like random TV and pop culture stuff I like Star Trek, and I like Bill Murray, Breaking Bad, like I said. Those things define me too, but like two really huge pillars, I think, horror movies and then Nickelodeon. I don't know. To me, I'd have to go to the nostalgic route and just say 90s Nickelodeon because it would be sad never to watch horror movies again. But at the same time, it'd be sad never to revisit my childhood. But then again, it's like, wouldn't I get sick of seeing Hey Arnold and Rocco over and over again? So maybe I'll go back and say horror movies. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard. All right, I guess I'll revise my answer and I'll say horror movies because in every October I can have a massive marathon and really get into it because I really had a good time this October. I watched like 50 horror movies. I like totally watched less wrestling on purpose, watched more horror movies, and it was amazing. It was one of the most relaxing months I've had in like a year, maybe even a year and a half, 2 years. It was wonderful. So I gotta say, the nostalgia is awesome of 90s Nickelodeon, and it's a huge part of who I am in terms of like the art style and the graphics, the way they look. I use that in a lot of my channel artwork and stuff. I base all that off of 90s Nickelodeon. But I guess if like, push comes to shove, I guess horror movies. It's hard. It's really difficult. That's the worst question ever. Thanks, Deej Kirkby. That's too hard. Top 5 favorite films of the decade, and what are my goals for 2020? Asked Ronald Smith. All right, well, did I write down my movies? Oh yeah, I wrote down some movies, but it was more than 5. Again, going over the limits they were asked. I really liked Mad Max, The Revenant, Inception, Toy Story 3 was amazing, Inside Out, The Dark Knight Rises. I'm a big, Tom Hardy fan. I think he's amazing. And so him as Bane was incredible. Get Out was an awesome horror movie. I think one of the best in a long time. The Conjuring was a good horror movie. The new Halloween recently was a great horror movie. John Wick. There's so many more great movies, but I think The Revenant has to be up there because I thought it was such a beautiful movie. I know it's like, oh, you're picking like an Oscar winner, whatever. I don't know. I love that movie from the first time I saw it. I was like, this is a beautiful movie. And if you know the story about how they made it, oh my God, it blows your mind. They shot it in sequential order. If you're in like movies or TV, you know that just blows your mind. They also did it with natural lighting. You know how hard that is? The filming conditions were rough as hell. So let's just say Leo deserved that, was it an Oscar that he won? He deserved the Best Actor Oscar for that because the conditions were insane. So to me, you hands down got to talk about that. That might be like my number one movie out of there. And also, like I said, I'm partial to The Dark Knight Rises because I've seen that movie like a billion times. It's one of my favorite movie soundtracks. It's got an epic score. It really, really does. Priscilla's saying Captain America Civil War. That's a great movie too. So many good ones. It's hard to narrow it down to just 5. There's a slew of great movies. I mean, hell, I just saw Dr. Sleep. I thought Dr. Sleep was a great movie, and that's kind of a sequel to The Shining. And of course, the book was really good as well, because it's based off of the book that Stephen King wrote to follow up The Shining. But the movie really, I think, did the book justice overall, and I think it was really good. And to answer Ronald's question, what's my goal for 2020? It would have to be trying to make some headway with my content. Like, as you guys heard in the beginning of my stream, I really appreciate your support. I've been, struggling with content, and then I had a big opportunity, then lost that opportunity very shortly after, like a month in, which I was not expecting to happen. I thought I was going to have that opportunity for many months. There was every indication that it was going to keep going, that it wasn't like a trial or anything. So it was a big blow and bummer. So I think my goal for 2020 is just to keep going if I can, try to make time, but also not let my content overtake like my personal like stuff that I love either, like my watching of movies or TV, because like the last few months, like really October was the only month I watched real movies, and before that I hadn't watched hardly anything at all. So to me, just keep up with the stuff I love, and also keep working with content. That's some of my goals. Thanks for the questions, Ronald. Then my great friend Dave, who's in the chat, at Dave Pozeski, what's the best gift you've ever given someone at Christmas? And I like this question because I actually think I'm a pretty thoughtful gift giver. If I know the person pretty well, I try my best. I just recently gave my dad the replicas of the turtle doves from Home Alone 2. If you guys remember, like, Kevin goes to Duncan's toy chest, and he's given by Mr. Duncan 2 turtle doves, and he says, you give one to somebody and you keep one and you'll be friends forever. And anyway, I gave them to my dad and I was like, now we can be friends forever. And I did like the whole Mr. Duncan voice. So I thought that was a pretty good gift that I gave him for Christmas. I gotta say, I like that. I also gave him recently for Christmas, my dad, a ugly Christmas sweater with sharks on it. It was like a shark coming out of a Christmas wreath. And he loves sharks. So I thought it was a great present and he loved it, and we all took pictures with our ugly Christmas sweaters because I had one, my mom had one, and Paul had one, so we all took a picture. I think that was a great gift. I think he loved it. But my friend Teresa, I would get her great gifts. I got her a replica puzzle box from Hellraiser because we both love Hellraiser. I got her a Chris Farley book. It's incredible. I can't remember the name of the book. I'll tweet it out. It's one of the best books ever. It's all these people interviewed who knew Chris Farley, and so they basically transcribed all the interviews and like wrote them out like different little snippets of different parts of different people's interviews all throughout the book in different chapters having to do with different parts of his life. So like his early life, they interviewed his family, his teachers, his old classmates, and they were all in there. Like every page was like different snippets from different people's interviews all about Chris Farley. There was one part where a story about him sliding on this ice, he took off his shirt. It was cold as hell. This pond was frozen and he like slid across the ice. And like they were saying he was making whale noises, and like just reading it made me cry laughing. Like I was like, oh my God, Chris Farley, what a treasure he was. It's sad that he's not around anymore. But the Chris Farley book, the cover is him like holding this this microphone and like doing like a pointy kick. You guys got to check out this book. It's amazing. So not only did I get it for my friend Teresa for her birthday, I also bought a copy for myself because we both like Chris Farley and David Spade. I would always call her Spade because she was sarcastic, and I would call myself Farley because I was like crazy and out there and goofy. So that's kind of how we were, like totally like David Spade and Farley. I also got her an Andy Kaufman pillowcase. So you know how you guys go to t-shirt stores and you would get like a t-shirt, like what is it called? Sprayed? Airbrushed. So you would get airbrushed t-shirts. You can get those in any mall, or you used to be able to. So they could also do anything else. They could do pillowcases, stuff like that. So she loved Andy Kaufman. So I got her, I found a picture online and I got her an airbrushed Andy Kaufman pillowcase. And then I also got her, like I said, this goes back to the Chris Farley, David Spade. There's this great picture of Farley and Spade with them like hugging each other, like over each other's shoulders. And I got her and I that because like that's who we called each other, was Farley and Spade. So it was kind of like very symbolic to our friendship kind of thing. So I thought those were some of the good Christmas presents. Most of them were to my friend Teresa. I would give her gifts a lot of thought. But throughout the years, like if I know the person pretty well, I'll try to get them really good gifts. Like Paul, I'll get him like practical gifts because he doesn't really like gifts in general, but he likes practical things. So I give him like, oh, there's nowhere for our shoes. He wants our shoes to be put up. I'll give him a shoe rack. It's not exciting to me, but hey, he liked it. So I guess that's pretty good. That's a great question, Dave. Thanks. At Take the Bump Pod, can you give me one recommendation to watch on Disney Plus that isn't The Mandalorian? Yes, yes, and yes. I am watching all kinds of stuff on Disney Plus. Smart Guy, if you guys remember that amazing show from the 90s, it used to replay all the time after school. I remember. I love Smart Guy. If you remember Sister Sister, it's their real life little brother who was the lead in the show. I think it was Taj. Was his name Taj? I can't remember his name, but what's such a cute little kid, so smart. Lots of great actors in that show. Really heartfelt too. Like some of it was corny, but I think it really holds up in terms of just being like a fun, family-friendly comedy. I gotta say, that's a great show to watch on Disney Plus. And something that not everyone's going back and finding is Smart Guy. I would go and check that out. I think I saw that they have So Weird. That was a great X-Files type of show for kids back in the 90s. Maybe that was early 2000s. I think it was the 90s. No, I don't know. Maybe it was early 2000s. But either way, if So Weird is on there, I can't remember if it is. Check out So Weird. Of course, Bug Juice is on there. That's like a reality show for kids when they all went to summer camp. I used to love. And yes, Taj Mowry. Thank you. Mowry. I'm always saying it wrong. Anyway, thank you, Dave. I can't pronounce things, as you know. You know me. But thank you for dropping his name. He's a great little actor, and Smart Guy was an awesome show. But like I said, Smart Guy, So Weird. If you like kind of sci-fi type of stuff, it did that really well for a kid's show. Really was really good, really well done, really well written. Of course, how could you not love Boy Meets World? That's all on Disney Plus. I got to interview the co-executive producer and writer from Boy Meets World, Mark Blutman. Really nice guy, really awesome guy, huge wrestling fan. Had a lot of great stories about working with Vader, because if you guys know and are big Boy Meets World fans, you know that Vader was a guest star. So it was pretty cool. I got to hear some behind-the-scenes stories from the co-executive producer of the show, who we still talk back and forth. We text. He's such a nice guy. And he talked to me about how some people didn't like the change in Eric. Eric as a character went from like really suave and like, funny in like a sophisticated way to like goofy, like out there zany. But he explained like that's just how his personality would have developed as he got older. They kind of thought of him as like his character as like Jim Carrey type of personality. So to me, like that all makes sense. Like, I don't know. I just love talking to him. So check out Boy Meets World on Disney Plus. And of course, Gargoyles, one of the best animated shows of all time. If you like Star Trek The Next Generation, a lot of the voice actors or the actors from TNG are the voices in Gargoyles. And I haven't rewatched it yet, but that's my plan later in the year. Once I get through Breaking Bad and Star Trek TNG and Picard and all this other stuff I got backlogged, I'm going to do like a Disney movie marathon, like old animated movies. I'm going to do a Disney Channel original movie marathon. Then I'm going to move on to general stuff like Gargoyles. I'm going to rewatch that whole series because it truly is one of the best animated shows of all time. People will tell you how well written it is. It's really, really sophisticated for a quote kids show. Check all that out on Disney Plus. Highly recommended. Great question. All right, then we go to at Adam VON Acid. When it comes to horror, do you prefer blood and guts and gore, or the type of horror that less is more? I gotta say, there's nothing wrong with like a slasher slasher film. I just think that less is more is greater. Like, I've talked about this in the past on some of my streams. Jaws, such a great movie. You don't see the shark that much, but I think that adds to it. Just that shot where they're tracking underneath people's feet in the water, which, obviously the camera is the shark. It's the shark's point of view. So to me, as an audience member, that is chilling. That is terrifying. When you're in the pool, you think about that scene. So to me, the less is more is kind of my jam, just because stuff like that is like, really creepy to me. And even stuff like The Exorcist that is kind of in your face, the idea of possession to me is kind of the less is more. The idea of hauntings, all that type of stuff and topics I think are great. And that's my type of horror that I gravitate towards. But I like all horror movies. So Derek is going back to our Disney Plus content. Even Stevens was a damn good show too on Disney. I haven't seen that in years. I'd love to rewatch that eventually too. Okay, Doctor of Wrestling. Of course, that's wrestling spelled with an R. I miss the 90s so much. From wrestling to video games to TV and movies, do you think things will ever get as good as they were during that era? No. The 90s are like a one-of-a-kind time. You guys can scoff at me all you want. I know it's ridiculous to live in the past, but I'm just a nostalgic person. I'm really into traditions. I'm really into remembering old stuff. It's just me. It's always been me. Even when I was a kid, I'd be nostalgic for stuff. And I was a kid. And I was always super into tradition even back then. So I don't know. I think the 90s are just like a really special time to me because that's when I grew up. All kinds of cool toys, all kinds of cool movies. As Dr. of Wrestling said, great video games. So to me, it's a special time. Even though it's kind of cool now, as I said in my pop culture events of the last decade, the 90s are kind of coming back. So it's almost like we get to relive the stuff we kind of miss. So it's not like it's completely gone. Josh, who was just in our chat a little while ago at Josh Robinson00, check out his work and his YouTube. He's incredible. Favorite TLC song, and this is so random. I can't remember if it's Scrubs or Scrub, singular or plural. I like that song. I also like, the Waterfalls song. Both are really good. I would have to say No Scrub or Scrubs. Whatever. This sounds terrible. I don't even remember if it's with an S or not. Scrubs. Okay. They're correcting me in the chat. Thanks, guys. I'm ridiculous that I can't remember. That's a hilarious song. My friend Burke and I, when we drive in his car, he'll drive me around sometimes to lunch and stuff. We would always sometimes listen to random 90s music, and whenever we would listen to that song, we would always blare it and sing it out loud together. It's so ridiculous. We filmed it once, some of our singing in the car. It's ridiculous. All right, at the Pale Adonis, too late for this week, this was like a month ago that he said this. Do you think AEW will bring in a mid-tier title given they're such a stacked mid-card, which they aren't in the mix for the main title, all these great mid-carders? I think they'll have to bring in a mid-card title because there's just so many great people on the roster. And then the Pale Adonis goes on and he gives examples of people like, Scorpio Sky, Ray Phoenix, Trent, Jungle Boy, Adam Page. All these people, eventually can get to the main title, but it would help them and it would be great for them to have a mid-card title that they could hold. I totally agree with that. I think they should go with that direction. I'm sure we will eventually see it. I'm sure it is in the works, but with anything, it's going to take time, All right. And Good Guy Dave asked what my New Year's resolutions are. And like I said, just be better about content, more consistent, smaller goals that are more accomplishable, if that's even a word, that are easier to accomplish, I should say. So just things I can do, things I can see progress being made. But regardless of my content future, I gotta say again and reiterate what I said in the beginning. I'm so thankful for you guys. Really, this type of interaction. I know you guys are in here with me for so long. Thank you. This is much longer than I anticipated. I really appreciate you guys' support, and I think the best part of content is all the friends I've made, like my friend Warren here, my friend Dave. I would have never met them had it not been for wrestling Twitter and wrestling content and all that stuff. God, it's some of my favorite parts of being a creator is that I was able to befriend these people, and it means the world to me. So even if say my content creation days were to end tomorrow, it would suck and I would be really sad about it because, it's kind of like my baby in a way. I've put everything into it, my heart, my passion, my money, my time. But I would still be so grateful for all the people I met. I mean, I got so many messages of support today. I was tearing up about some of them. I'm so grateful, really. I appreciate you guys. I really love you guys. It's been a hard year. Not this year. I mean, so far this year's kind of been hard too, but 2019 was hard. But I would have never made it through had it not been for people just constantly supporting me, support that I didn't even know I'd get from people that, a few years ago would have been strangers to me. Now they're friends. It's so awesome. And then I got to meet people who I knew from wrestling Twitter in real life, like my friend Anthony, Smark to Death. I can't believe I actually got to meet him and his awesome wife, Olivia. That was a highlight for me. Really cool people. Just all that stuff would have never happened. I'm so grateful for all you guys. Dave says Kelsi to AEW confirmed. We're still going with that joke, Dave. Because Bob Culture Podcast said Kelsi working for AEW in a matter of months. You're right. I couldn't even get the Bucks to retweet my interview with Dana Massey. That was ridiculous that never happened. But I love the Bucks. I'll continue to support them. I think they're really unique. I think they got some of the greatest minds of the business. Because look at what they've kind of done today. It's not just them. I know it's Cody and all that and Omega. But the Bucks are such a huge driving part of that whole thing, in my opinion. So, although, they didn't retweet a lot of my stuff that I did, even covering them, I don't care. I still really, I support them a lot. And it's really cool to see what they've done. AEW was just an idea a year and a few months ago, and now it's a reality. It's crazy. The wrestling landscape is it was already in the midst of changing and evolving, but it's just to another level now. It's just nuts. I hope 2020 will be a great year. Priscilla says, great year. It'll be a great year for me. I hope so. Fingers crossed. It's not starting off so well, but who knows? I'm going to try to be optimistic here. And finally, my last question / it's almost a statement. At PCH Nobog, a great friend of mine, always supportive on Twitter. Am I crazy or has Lana not become the most entertaining person on Raw? I can see her leading a faction of men, a la Lana's Angels. That's pretty hilarious. I do think she's pretty entertaining in an over-the-top Troll 2 type of way. Like that guy in Troll 2 who is getting turning into a plant. And he sees people, the trolls, eating this girl who's turning into a plant. And they're like, they're eating her. And then they're going to eat me. Oh my God. So it's such bad acting. That's Lana now. But it's working for her. I don't know. It's great. So awesome stuff there, I gotta say. Oh, Dawn, thanks for joining. She says, keep creating. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Thanks, Dawn. I appreciate you and your support. And I do appreciate your message. Like I said, I still got so many messages to respond to. It's not that I'm ignoring you guys if you did send me a message today or a comment. I really do. I want to get back to all of you. I just been working and exercising. Then I came and did this. So I'm going to respond after that. Oh, Sandman is here from Periscope. I used to do all these scopes back in like 2018. Sandman was in all of my scope chats. Thanks for joining on my YouTube chat right now. I really appreciate you. He says, hope your 2020 is going great so far. Thanks so much, Sandman. I hope your 2020 is also going well. Uh, and DJ Storms is saying respond whenever I get the chance because I think he messaged me too. Lots of people did. I will get back to you guys for sure. If not tonight, then definitely tomorrow right away. I was like, I should stream tonight after all, like everybody, being so nice and supportive and stuff, and me saying that I'm going to give content a go. Well, then I might as well put out some content on my YouTube, right, guys? So that's what I decided to do. And I know it's been a long stream, but thank you guys for your time because no matter what happens in the future, your time to me is invaluable because you could give it to anybody. You could watch anything. You could do anything. But you chose to spend the time with me and you chose to send a few words my way of support. All that it doesn't fall on deaf ears. As I said earlier, it means so much. Thanks, guys. I hope you enjoyed the questions. I know it was long-winded, but I had fun talking about the pop culture events. Like, that was fun. Anytime anyone has anything 90s to talk about or pop culture in general, movies, TV, that stuff's my jam just as much as wrestling. Feel free to always tweet at me at SuperKicking It. If you guys aren't following me on Twitter, that's my handle. It's spelled with a G, SuperKickingIt. I also have a website, same name in the website, superkickingit.com. All my links are there. So if you want to check out my podcast, which drops every week with my co-host Paul, we talk wrestling. We talk all kinds of wrestling. You can find the links, like I said, superkicking.com. Little tab says podcast. Go there. There's links to all the different podcast platforms, or you could see it because it'll be now on my YouTube channel again. We're returning to the YouTube. Thank you, Warren, for watching. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you, Head Cheese. Thank you, everyone. Zach's in here. Thank you so much. DJ, really appreciate all you guys so much. And I did enjoy Wrestle Kingdom, Sandman. I talked all about it in the beginning. My top 3 matches, before I go, I'll just recap real quick. Top 3 matches were Hiromu Ospreay, Okada Ibushi, and Okada Naito. All great stuff. So thanks you guys for watching. I'll catch you next time. I should be doing another video very soon. Take care.